Have you ever fallen for someone who seems warm one day and cold the next, leaving you loving the space more than the person? And have you ever asked yourself, is this just someone with an avoidant attachment style? Or am I dealing with a narcissist in disguise? I'm Jim Rohn, relationship coach and survivor of emotional manipulation by someone I once believed was simply afraid of intimacy. In today's video, I'm giving you 3 powerful signs that your avoidant partner may not just be wounded, but actually hiding a narcissistic core behind the mask of needing space. Because here's the truth. An avoidant might love you, but they're scared of closeness. A narcissist? They don't love you, they use you. And if you don't know the difference, you'll stay trapped in a painful loop where you beg for love, and they hold the power. In just a few minutes, I'll walk you through how to spot the difference. When needing space is real and when it's just a manipulation tactic. How to tell emotional shutdown from cold-hearted control. And what happens when you set a boundary? This is the ultimate test. If you've ever been told you're too much for wanting connection, or punished emotionally just for showing up fully, this video is for you. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay with me till the end. You deserve clarity. You deserve peace. And most of all, you deserve to reclaim your power. Let's begin with the very first sign, one of the most commonly misunderstood: independence. I want you to hear this clearly. Not everyone who needs space is a bad person. In fact, avoidant partners often grow up learning that intimacy is dangerous. They come from homes where emotions were neglected, or where closeness meant pain, chaos, or disappointment. So in adulthood, they retreat not because they don't care, but because closeness feels threatening. They pull away to regulate themselves, to find emotional safety. They're not doing it to manipulate you. They're doing it to survive a world where vulnerability used to hurt. An avoidant doesn't want to harm you, they just don't know how to come close without panicking. And while that still might hurt you, at least their withdrawal isn't about power, it's about protection. And if there's self-awareness, effort, and time, it can change. They can learn to come close without fear. But then there's another kind of withdrawal, colder, more calculated, the kind that makes your stomach sink, the kind where you start asking yourself, what did I do wrong? Why are they acting like I don't even exist? That's not independence anymore, that's control. The narcissist in disguise hides behind the claim of needing space. But they don't actually need time to reflect, they use that space to destabilize you. They go silent not to decompress but to make you spin in anxiety. They make plans without telling you, act like it's normal not because they forgot, but to remind you, you are not important. That's how they hold power, by keeping you in a state of guessing. I've been there, and let me tell you, that's not love. That's a psychological game, and it works best when you start shrinking to keep them. You stop asking questions. You stop sharing how you feel. You start telling yourself, I need to tone it down. I don't want to push them away. And piece by piece you abandon yourself to keep someone whose presence is never certain. If you're doing less to avoid being left, you're not in a relationship. You're in a power contract you never sign. You should never have to earn someone's attention. Love should not make you anxious over every text, every silence. It should not make you feel like a burden for simply wanting closeness. So when someone says, I just need space, watch the intention behind their actions. Do you feel respected or dismissed? Are they communicating clearly or forcing you to guess? Do you feel more grounded after that silence, or like you're slowly disappearing? Those are the questions that lead you to truth. I say this not to scare you, but to help you get clear, because you can't change someone. But you can respect yourself enough to stop accepting confusion as your baseline. You were not born to live in anxiety. You were not born to question whether you're still worthy today. You deserve clarity. You deserve presence. You deserve love that shows up in both words and action. And if that feels like too much for someone, maybe they were never ready for someone like you. And if emotional distance is the fog that leaves you lost, then this third sign is the cold wind that cuts through everything: emotional punishment and passive control through silence. At this point, you're no longer just dealing with withdrawal, you're facing a pattern, a strategy, one that makes you feel like you're walking through an emotional minefield, unsure which step will cause them to shut down, ice out, or vanish completely. This is where the behavior of the avoidant and the narcissist can look almost identical, but are driven by entirely different intentions. An avoidant fears conflict. They avoid it not to dominate, but to feel safe. Emotional intensity overwhelms them. Their silence is a shield, not a weapon. They don't want to hurt you, they just don't know how to stay regulated while staying engaged. If you set a boundary with clarity, a self-aware avoidant might even feel relief. They're not trying to break your boundaries, they simply want reassurance that honesty won't destroy the relationship. But a narcissist doesn't avoid conflict out of fear. They avoid it to maintain control. For them, silence is not a pause, it's a tactic. It's the way they make you feel unsure, invisible, and desperate to win their approval. They disappear from important conversations, ignore your messages, and withhold communication not because they're scared, but because they want you to feel like you've done something wrong. Their silence isn't a retreat, it's a punishment. What's painful is you never know what will trigger the next shutdown. They might be warm one day and icy the next. There's no explanation, no warning. And instead of being loved with consistency, you live in a state of emotional hypervigilance, editing yourself, tiptoeing through conversations, hoping not to step on a landmine that sends them into another freeze. That's not love. That's control through the fear of abandonment. I remember telling myself, he just needs space. I shouldn't push. But when you're always the one reaching out, always the one repairing, always the one being punished without understanding why, it's no longer about attachment styles. It's about power. It's about a dynamic where you are constantly seeking permission to be heard. An avoidant might withdraw temporarily, but if you say something like, let's take a pause and come back when we're both ready, they'll often feel relief, because they too want safe space. But say the same thing to a narcissist and watch how they react. You'll see either rage or manipulation, because you just took the control away, and that terrifies them. The difference lies in how they respond to your boundaries. The avoidant might struggle, but they won't try to shatter your limits to regain control. The narcissist, on the other hand, will do anything to break back in. They'll break the silence just to throw a jab, deliver blame, or play the victim, anything to pull you back into their cycle. If you respond, if you explain, if you apologize, they win. They're back in the driver's seat. Don't confuse fear-based withdrawal with calculated punishment. A true avoidant doesn't want you to suffer. A narcissist needs you to suffer to keep you near. And if you've ever felt like someone was punishing you with silence, ignoring you every time you dared to be honest, or using indifference to make you chase, they're not loving you. They're testing your self-worth. Real love doesn't ask you to walk on eggshells. It doesn't leave you guessing what you did wrong. It doesn't use absence to make you anxious. It uses space to help you both grow. So next time someone pulls away without a word, stop and examine the intention behind their silence. Are they self-regulating her? Are they punishing you for speaking up? Do they need rumor? Do they want power? If it's the latter, it's time to step out of the role of the one who always apologizes. It's time to stop trying to earn your way back into conversations that should never have been shut down in the first place. It's time to choose self-respect over access, clarity over hope, and safety over pretend connection. And if you've ever been hurt by someone with an avoidant attachment style or narcissistic tendencies, I want you to understand this. It's not just a loss, it's also a profound invitation to awaken. Yes, it's painful. Yes, it drains you. And yes, at times, it feels like you've been left with nothing. But within that heartbreak lies something sacred, a mirror reflecting back to you the wounds you've carried for far too long, but never had the chance to truly face. Maybe you found yourself asking, why do I keep ending up in the same kind of relationship? Why am I drawn to people who make me feel not enough? Why does someone pulling away feel like my whole world is falling apart? You start by blaming them for being cold, for being distant, for making you feel like you're the problem. But once the anger fades, all that's left is an ache you know too well. A kind of ache that didn't start with them. It's old. It's familiar. It sounds like, I'm not worth staying for. I have to do more to be loved. And that's when the real work begins, not in changing them, but in turning inward. Not to blame yourself, but to finally tend to the parts of you that have been silently bleeding for years. You hope that if you just loved them harder, understood them deeper, gave more, waited longer, they'd finally see you. But they didn't. And that moment of realization, that's not your failure. That's your awakening. Because love should never require you to shrink, silence, or edit yourself just to be tolerated. If staying loved means being less of yourself, that's not love. That's a reenactment of an old, unhealed wound. Once you see this, You stop needing them to change, because the shift happens inside you. You start recognizing that if someone could make you feel this unworthy, it's because there are still places in you that believe it. And instead of trying to fix or rescue them, you come home to yourself. I won't pretend that this is easy. Awakening doesn't come in light, it often comes through darkness, through tears, through sleepless nights, through that deep, aching loneliness that feels unbearable. But here's the truth, it's a clean loneliness. It's not the ache of abandonment, it's the clearing of illusion, the emptiness that makes space for your true self to emerge. And slowly, you begin to feel lighter, not because they come back, but because you return to yourself. You start realizing that you no longer want to live in the waiting room of someone else's love. You no longer want to be in relationships where your pain is seen as too much, and your needs are an inconvenience. You stop betraying yourself in hopes of being enough for someone else, and instead, you become enough for you. And when you leave, when you walk away not to punish them, but to protect yourself, you are saying something powerful to the universe. I am no longer available for anything that makes me question my worth. You don't need them to admit they were wrong. You don't need a late apology. What you need, and what you've always deserved, is a love that starts with you, a love that doesn't wait for external validation, but rises from an inner knowing that you are already enough of it in your messiest, rawest, softest form. And maybe that heartbreak, that was the most beautiful thing that ever happened, because it shook you awake from the illusion of survival-based love. It helped you stop romanticizing scraps. It reminded you that love is not constant sacrifice. Love is not confusion. Love is not about being worthy enough. Love is clarity. Love is peace. Love is where you can breathe without fear of being too much. Love is where silence doesn't feel like punishment, and honesty doesn't cost you connection. Love is where you can fall apart and still be held. And that kind of love, you no longer need to beg for it. You don't need to chase it. You become it. Because it's been inside you all along, just waiting for you to come home. If you've ever loved someone who kept you close enough to hope but far enough to hurt, please remember this. You're not crazy. You're not weak. You're not too much. You're just human. And you're longing for something deeply human, real connection. But let me be clear. You deserve more than connection. You deserve presence. You deserve consistency. You deserve a love that doesn't cost you yourself. This journey may have begun in pain, but it doesn't end there. It ends in clarity. It ends when you realize that love is not something you earn by shrinking. It's something that flows naturally when you stop performing for approval and start honoring your truth. And if right now you're caught in the middle, lone foot in hope, one foot in heartbreak, know this. You can leave without an apology. You can let go and still love yourself. You can walk forward without regret when you choose clarity over chaos, self-respect over fear. I know it's hard, but every moment you delay, every day you stay in the gray area of almost love, you trade time that could be spent building a life where love meets you with the same depth, consistency, and reverence you've always offered. So if anything in this video resonated with you, let it be the start of a new promise. I will no longer attach myself to what makes me question my worth. I will no longer call it love if it requires me to disappear. I will choose me every day until someone worthy chooses me too.